we keep talking about it, didn't we? In Power BI and in DAX especially, context, right? It's so critical to everything. It's the core, the crux. It all comes through context. So let's have another visit at context. All right, lads and lasses, welcome along. Weekend work. Power BI and DAX especially is about context, right? The portable nature of DAX calculations and equations means that context is everything. For all there are only two types of context out there, right, you can get into a real mess really quickly, okay? Very quickly. So don't forget your types of context. Just to remind you, you've got your filter context, so actually what's being passed in, and you've got the row context, actually where it's being processed against, right? Honestly, in the main Power BI report side, row context very rarely comes in, right? 9 times out of 10, it's all about filter. Row context does apply to all column calculations though. So if you've got a calculated column, row context is important. Nice to know, isn't it? So how about we cut an hour into Power BI desktop and see if we can figure out where context is taken we're wrong, eh? Champion. So it's clear that context isn't as simple as we necessarily think, okay? And that's what I want you to understand, okay? Context is something that will change, and it's something that you need to understand and be able to piece together so that you can fully appreciate what's happening. If we hover over here in the filter thing, the little funnel, filter funnel, it tells you the context of what's being passed in, which is very useful. Your DAX may also have something. So we've got in here a filter on the top 10 by inspection count, where the day drift is less than 0, and where the year is greater than 2015. We did that, if you remember, because it was messing with stuff. So we know already that we've got a good date window built in here, okay? Putting a year drift filter in will help, or should help, in terms of tying it to something. A good way of understanding what's going on is if you bring your year to date in and put it on a blank place, somewhere blank on it, and it's got no values or very few values. That's the right value that we know, 184. That ties in to 184 on here. We can look and see if we bring last year in, it's a very different value. Again, 1300. But that is, remember, tied to how far through the year we are because of the way we wrote our last year calculation. So again, if we hover over here, we can see that day drift is tied back. So our same period last year is from January 1st to middle of March. Okay, ties it there. That's how big a window you've got. There's no arguments there. And in that period, last year we only did 1,300. If you wanted the full last year, you would need to do something different that changed the context. Right? But for the sake of this, I want to leave it here. Right? What I was wanting to get at was where we could start to look and actually see what's happening, or what can we predict that across the year they will get based on previous values. So I thought in order to do that, we'd need to write a new measure. And since I know you've loved the X functions last week, right? Oh, X functions. X going to give it to you and all that stuff. You know, I'm down with the kids and all that, right? Right. Let's find out a yearly average. Yeah, so the yearly average is going to equal average X of what all selected years. And that's then going to be the inspections, right? So what we're doing here is we're saying for our years, what's the average? Okay, so it's going to go through every year that we've got available. I'm going to count those up, right, and return the average. So let's hit enter. Bring that in. So that number's higher again, right? 1,400. Sorry, 14,000 even. Need to make it a whole number because we can't do partial inspections. That's not the way we roll, man. Not in Newcastle, it's not, right? So we'll change that to a whole number. Right? And we could say, wait, still doesn't, I'm not feeling that. But if we pick 17, 18, 19, 20, right, you see, all of a sudden, everything's a bit different, isn't it? So 23,000 year to date is the same as that. Last year was 17,000. There we go, 17,000. And surprise, surprise, the average is about there, somewhere in the middle, right? It's what an average is, right? So this is working for us. And the reason it looks a bit doolally is because we've got the partial year at the beginning. So if we pick the other years, we'll find, yeah, that works, right? What we really want to be doing is saying, well, the average should be, or the predicted should be that multiplied by that, shouldn't it? By the average change. So what average change and what average yearly should give us what we predict this year to be, right? And you could, these are rough and ready, these, what you'd probably want to do is get a proper measure going based on a 5-year period or something like that, and then say, right, we're rolling 5-year average percentage change, average inspections. Next year, we predict X, okay? But we're going to do it from here, right? And again, because DAX is portable, because DAX is simple and does it a lot and does a lot for you, right? You can do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in predicted inspections equals, right? And this is going to be yearly average multiplied by war average change. And again, let's make that a whole number. We're going to put that over there. And what we can do is we can say, well, let's pick 17, 18, 19, 20, which is where we're now. We had like significant growth, 111% increase. We can see it goes from 17,000 to 19,000 as we're predicted. But now that's not right because 2020 they did 23,000. So we can actually start to get quite clever with what we do because we could then be able to turn around and say, wait, let's look at that value, let's minus it from there and see what the difference is from your average predicted. We're getting a lot more complex, and it's all coming from that simplicity of DAX, but also from how the context will flow. So what do you reckon then? Context in DAX, it's not an easy one. So don't worry if you look at this going like, it doesn't make sense, man. Why? What's he talking about? I didn't get it. Right? You're not alone. The core to understand here is that Power BI desktop, you've got the funnel that will help you with the context. If in doubt, stop having it in a visual per se or in a chart with other things. Just bring out the total, okay? And there's now to stop you getting a calculator out and going, right, well, in this case here, this is the answer I expect. Right? And being aware of what's going on. What you saw as well with that demo was that sometimes context can catch you out. So with your year-to-date number, or last year number in particular, where it's filtered down, and quite correctly so, I think, for the context that we would use it in normally to show me up to the same point of the year that we're up to. What have we done? If we were looking at that at the company-wide metric like we were doing there and to see how what each company was doing, we would probably want across the whole year for that. What did you do last year? So there's contextual things that you need to understand. And what you need to also understand is that the context required changes as well, just like we mentioned. So normally it's good to know that relative to the year, we're down. we're 7% or 13%, I think it is now, in terms of 2021 versus 2020 up to the middle of March in terms of inspections in New York of the water towers. That's a vital piece of information to know. If we were comparing it against the whole year, it wouldn't make sense because where I'd expect it to be low. But if I'm looking at, well, what did my company do last year, then I do want to know. So it becomes something that you need to be aware of, and potentially it's something to be putting in the descriptors or making notes and reference as to whether it's a relative year to date or previous year or an absolute previous year. And those are all key areas that you'll need to be thinking through as Power BI developers. So don't forget, if you liked what you saw, leave us a like and don't forget to subscribe. Head on over to geordieintelligence.co.uk, become a member, and you can sign up to our training courses. You can also post comments, give feedback on the website, tell us what you're thinking. Get involved, really. For now, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Ta-da.